Welcome back, and it's a strong day for metals as a sector because we've seen the weak US dollar index support and the strong US non-farm payroll data, while of course may lead to further rate hikes is what the market is deciphering it as. But at this point in time, it's a good gain. As you can see, 0.5% to a percentage point of gains across on your screen. We're now joined by Kunal Shah of Nirmal Commodities to get a sense of this gain and whether or not this is sustainable and should you be getting into buying. And that exactly is my first question, Kunal. 3 weeks of declines and this week has started on a positive note. Have we made a bottom? Are things looking better or, upside now for metals?
See, on a macro front, things are changing dramatically. Earlier, from last 3 weeks, like you rightly pointed out, the metal prices were going down, preempting that there was going to be a chance that there is going to be a recession at US because of the banking crisis and all. But suddenly a stronger labor data in US is putting a very strong case of soft landing. So at the same time, interest rates are very high. They are not going to move up substantially from here, number one. And number two, since the labor market is very strong, we are not going to see recession. So it seems that we've seen a good correction in metals and it's a time for a pullback. And I believe that there can be more gains on this recent upside. And I'm not expecting a major crash or major downfall from here, but a pullback from here is very likely, and metal prices are going to move up. So copper trading at 740, buying at 748, you can see again going back to the levels of 760, 65. But since the QT is also going on, not expecting 20-25% upside. So it's a time for a pullback. No major rally expected from here. But at the same time, some pullback is definitely on the cards for all the metals. Zinc can test to 245, 250. Aluminum can test levels of 220. That kind of upside is expected in metals.
All right, so definitely not a short position is what you should be creating from here on. This is a time to start accumulating perhaps. And where do you think the best of the gains could really come in from? Because most of the metals now have strong fundamentals. Copper perhaps the best because we're looking at inventories on LME at the lowest since 2005. And with the kind of reiterations that we've seen from Codelco suggesting that they are looking further output cuts in this year as well.
Yeah, so the supply side of copper is relatively having a problem, especially from the South American countries. Chile, Peru, Mexico, everywhere we are seeing the supply side is not as strong as the prices are. So yes, copper looks poised to move up and outperform the entire base metal complex. In base metal, zinc is relatively, the fundamentals are weaker because of the demand side, China steel production going down, but copper seems to be outperforming the entire metal complex.
So even as the base metals are looking better, it's not the same story for the ferrous metals, because when you look at iron ore, we're looking at lower lows on this, 5-month lows onto this one. It's still down by nearly 7% if you look at 7 trading sessions. Steel, in the meanwhile, has seen some buying coming in today.
Yeah, this is the markets are basically not moving in line with the demand and supply, but the overall theme changing. So like I said, at the start of the conversation, certainly now, the data from US is pointing towards a soft landing scenario rather than a recessionary concerns. And the moment you see that, you see buying coming into the metals, buying coming into oil, and that kind of scenario happens. So yes, steel relatively a pullback, same in line with the other metals. Not expecting any sharp up move from here, but definitely we are going to see some pullback in steel, maybe 3 to 4% or maximum 5%. So after a good correction in steel prices, a pullback in steel also cannot be ruled out.
So how important is going to be China now? Because we're looking at US very keenly. We've seen economic data come in as well. And you have Chinese data, trade numbers coming in tomorrow. Wednesday is going to be important because the inflation data from China and US as well comes in on that day. So the next couple of days in sense of event data, how are you looking at the price movement then?
Chinese data for the last quarter also was very strong. The GDP was 4.5% expectation versus expectation of 4%. So I expect going forward the numbers to improve from China. But we are not going to see that construction boom in China, which accounts for the 25 to 30% of the overall metals consumption. So the real estate sector in China is going to revive but we are not going to see the kind of demand which we used to see 10 years back. So I'm expecting the numbers to improve, the metals to gradually improve, but no major bull run or the structural bull run, because the real estate sector is going to grow slowly, and that is more desirable for China also. So I'm expecting the Chinese data to be beating the expectation, and that will also lead to some more pullback in metals.
Okay. Kunal, how are you also looking at silver then? Because as you turn bullish on other base metals, industrial metals, is that going to support silver? And what are your targets onto that one for this quarter by the end of this year as well?
Well, I'll give you simple numbers. The silver market at the start of 2023 was having the highest deficit since last decade. The silver market was in a deficit of 250 million ounce. That number is never seen in last 10 years. So the fundamentals of silver is definitely indicating towards it is heading towards $27, $28 on COMEX, perhaps after that $30, and on MCX 80,000 is my first target. Then the second target would be 85,000. So silver, irrespective of what happens this year, also the demand side for silver looks pretty strong. Last year the total demand was roughly 1,250 million ounce. This year I'm expecting that numbers to be around 1,200 million ounce, which still is pretty hefty. And with the deficit of 250 million ounce, silver prices can really test, even I won't be surprised if it tests, 1 lakh rupees on MCX. So
Right.
the outlook of silver looks pretty bullish.
Okay, so bullish on metals overall, but definitely more bullish when it comes to silver going forward. Kunal, thank you as always for joining us with that sense on overall metal space.